social ties. Looks a little bit different than normal. I'm sure you'll say we're going out live tonight, and we're so excited because tonight we have some of the most epic women that the Northeast has to offer. We're going to be joined tonight by the Women's Banner Group and also Lasscast. So thank you so much to everybody for joining us tonight. How is everyone? This is where I get a wall of noise. Thumbs up, everybody.
Great.
Yeah, sort of. So the way we're going to do tonight is we're going to hear from both groups, have a little bit of a chat about what it is they do, as usual. Tell us a bit about yourselves, what you do and how people can get involved, and then I think we'll just we'll go into having a little chat about things that have been happening this week that have really drawn our attention, and I'm sure people are going to know what that's all about. Looking forward to getting into that, but tonight I'm going to be joined by Rochelle. Hello, Rochelle. As my co-host.
There's so many of us here. It's great, isn't it?
It's fantastic, I know. So Rochelle, if it's okay with you, I think we'll start with the Banner Group. You're going to have to interview them because it's weird for me.
Yeah, no problem. So are we going to switch some screens, or shall we just go for it?
I think we are switching some screens when we can. Tonight is a little bit different because we've had a bit of a crazy evening. Tonight has been a lot going on, so our children are still up and running around, so we're just gonna wing it as we go, but it does mean that everybody gets to see everybody's absolutely beautiful faces on here, so that I'm happy with that.
Yeah, me too. So the Women's Banner Group, would you like to tell everybody sort of why you started and why you got together? Because I know that we've talked about it a lot, but just for everybody who's sort of new watching tonight, I think it'd be great if you could introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit why you started.
If it's okay. Well, I was going to say I quite fancy deferring to someone else. People don't need to hear my voice all the time, but yes, I'm Laura Daly. I initially founded the Women's Banner Group. I feel like we've had this conversation so many times over the past week with International Women's Day. So many people have been in touch to say, can you tell us a bit about yourself? So I apologise, anyone who's watching, who's heard this for the millionth time this week. But initially what we are is we're a community group set up to recognise and remember the achievements of women, initially in the Durham coalfield, because, well, basically of the Durham Miners Gala. At the time I became the Women's Officer for Sedgefield, I was getting really a lot more aware of women's issues and things like that, and at the exact same time it was almost 100 years of suffrage. And on top of that, somebody was going to restart the Women's Gala in Durham. So it was like a perfect storm for me, because I was like, well, the Women's Gala would have been really lovely in its day, I'm sure. But I just felt a bit like, hang on a minute, why do we need to be separated? Can we not just go right ahead and be involved? Because women have been, at the forefront of all sorts during the miners' strike and years before. They keep communities together. So it just felt a bit disingenuous, Paul's favourite word, for us to perpetuate that separation. So, yeah, I just thought, screw it, let's give this a go. And then I met Lynn.
I knew Laura a little bit, for a few months before the first meeting that we had. So the first meeting of the Women's Banner Group was back in November 2017. And I don't mind admitting it literally saved my life. I'd been 4 weeks separated from my husband, and it just gave me something to get involved in. And I think my interest in the group came from being able to combine my long-time mining heritage passion. I come from a long line of coal miners and been every single miners' gala, and big meeting, as I normally refer to it, and sort of longing for women's equality as well. I think everything that Laura was doing with the group just ticked every single box for me. And at the time that the group was formed in November 2017, I was actually supporting the Durham Miners Association at the time, or well, still am, on their advisory board for the National Lottery Heritage Fund bid that they're putting together. So with those connections, we managed to get the Women's Banner Group affiliated as the first ever all-female banner group to the Durham Miners Association, which in the International Year of the Woman was just, incredible, absolutely amazing achievement. And then as we were sort of getting the group together to start making the first banner, this is when Samantha came on board.
Yeah, because then they needed somebody with a big gob who could shout.
And stitch things.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically, we then needed to reach out to women across the whole Durham coalfield, and we really only had the fact that they were women and involved in some kind of group, and all separate groups in the community. That was the only thing that was in common between them all. So we just needed to work on our communications, work on our social media presence, and ultimately on that first march put out the call to say that anybody was welcome to come and march with us, and that's what made the atmosphere that was totally electric on that first march, with all of the WASPy women and the County Durham teaching assistants, and I am kind of good with a megaphone, so that's officially my job, to shout in the megaphone, which I enjoy quite a lot.
Oh, it sounds amazing. So can you tell us about the banners as well, because you've got two, haven't you? One that you all grouped together to make, and then one that you had made special.
Mary and Myrtle.
So Mary and Myrtle, they have names. Mary is our community banner. Well, I suppose there's a million Marys who've been involved in this who are all incredible. But Mary Turner was the woman who actually sewed the panels into it. She went out and visited all the community groups. And God, she was amazing as well, because a lot of these community groups had never done anything creative before, and she managed to get out of them how they wanted to display themselves in art form, which just is beyond me. It's not one of my skill sets at all. And so she managed to get every single group to sort of tell a story through their panel on the banner, which was amazing. And that was very much a community-based project, and probably why I can't decide which one out of the two banners is my favourite, because that one is so important. It is the reason we're still going. It made a statement. It was clear that if you do get women together, they're amazing. They can organise, and it was funny for me as well. Just going off on a personal tangent, I grew up thinking that, and I don't know where I got the idea from. I think it was given to me that, oh God, you don't know, I'm going to hang around with a load of girls. They're all bitchy and horrible. Yet having never experienced that. So that is another social construct that needs dealing with, because when you get women together, actually, they're so good and they can do all sorts. So I was really blown away by that one. It was incredible. But I'll not bang on about it too long. You need to see it, basically. Come to any march that we get to do and see it for yourself. And you can touch that one as well, because it didn't cost over 10 grand.
Oh.
And I'll let one of the other girls tell you about the silk one.
Go on, Samantha.
So, I mean, the silk banner was going back to that initial concept of, we want to take our actual place in Durham Miners Gala and have a banner that is just as grand and just as expensive and just as legitimately a piece of art as all of the other banners that are in Durham Miners Gala and paraded every year. And the fact that in our public art across the board, and especially in miners banners, female representation is so poor and our stories are just not told. So with our banner, we have got, do you know how many people are on our banner?
Oh God, I knew you were going to ask me that.
It's like 9 or something.
There's Lynn doing the maths.
Yeah,
I'm counting them across the balcony and in the Pitman's Parliament. There's 10, I think.
There are several. There are more women depicted on our banner than there have ever been women depicted in all of the banners throughout the history of the Durham Miners Gala. That's the main thing. So it is now legitimately a proper piece of art which will be studied and will be respected in the same way as the really historic ones are. And we've taken our place, we've taken that space, and that's really important.
Yeah, you know what? I'll just like to say which my favourite bit is of the silk banner is the depiction of like everyone's nana. And it was the bit that resonated with me the most, because when I first met Laura and I started reading about the Women's Banner Group, I was thinking, my nana would have loved that. And then I looked at the banner and then I read about the history and I was like, they've absolutely nailed that on, because it's absolutely perfect. That representation I thought was absolutely brilliant. So we all know that the Durham Miners Gala isn't going ahead this year, but is there anything that you've got coming up that might be a bit of an event or anything you'd like to talk about?
Well, so we've kind of been doing loads of events over International Women's Day. Obviously, our big weekend has just passed with our 3 panels, and Neve was on one of them, and they all went down really well. Our most favourite thing to do is to go and travel the banners around and to show them to community groups all over the place. I think the last one we did though was Hull in February last year, just before lockdown. And we have a documentary film that was made just depicting our first year and what we did and how we got to where we are. So we take that around and we show it to people just as a way of, it's not a how to make banners film, it's a how to empower other people and how to bring people with you and hold other people up. And it became really apparent really quickly that was really needed. So that's kind of our goal, and we do that as much as we can. We started getting involved in politics more heavily. We've done a policy response to the Law Commission's document on hate crime. We're advocating that misogyny should be a hate crime. So we're waiting to see what happens with that. And yeah, we don't know what's going to happen for Durham Miners. They are planning on doing something within communities, and we will absolutely be involved in that in some way, shape or form, but nothing's been decided yet. But we'll be there flying the flag, don't worry, I won't myself.
Definitely. So when we talk about the Durham Miners Gala and the first time that you went, I've only been twice, and the twice that I've been, I don't really remember a lot of it, I'm going to be honest, because it was a good old day. But what's your favourite part about going to the Miners Gala, and like, how would you describe what it's feeling like being there with the banner and everything, with everyone there?
If I can just come in on that, because obviously I've been attending the gala my whole life. And for me, it's always been a family event. And even when you were little, sort of watching the older ones coming in, drinking's always been part of the day. You know, that's not something new. In fact, it used to be so bad back in the day that, you know, they used to board the shop windows up during the day because they'd always end up being smashed. But Gala Day has always been a family day. And it's always been a day that I've celebrated with my family and my kids, and, you know, before that, my parents. And historically, we would always sit on the same little spot on the corner right next to the stage. When I was little, my dad would take me and my brother, and if we sat and listened to the political speeches without, you know, interrupting him and letting my dad listen to them, and he would then let us go on the rides. And then I did the same with my kids. So then when we started with the Women's Banner Group, that changed my day completely, because I was no longer marching in with my hometown, you know, Spennymill banner. For the first time in my life, I was marching in from Marketplace, because I live in Spennymill, which is Southend. So we march in Elvet rather than Marketplace. That first day, I don't think I've cried as much on big meeting day. It was just absolutely so overwhelming, the amount of women that came along and joined in. Like Laura said, the WASPy women, the teaching assistants, so many, you know, there must have been over 100 women marching behind our banner that day.
Wow, that's amazing.
Trans health as well. We had Action for Trans Health as well. I just don't want to go on without mentioning them. They were excellent. But also, talking about the crying and the singing, we're taking those back. We are no longer ashamed of crying and singing. We're doing a lot of that.
So if anybody wanted to get involved in the Women's Banner Group, how could they get involved? Could anybody tell everybody listening?
So we've got, obviously we've got all the platforms. What I would suggest before anybody wants to bool in is just nip to our Facebook page. At the top, the very first post you'll see is our mission. Now that is a statement. It's a statement of conduct. It's a statement of our beliefs. If you agree with that statement, you can be one of us, effectively. There's no way to sort of join as a member, but you can email us and get on the mailing list to keep involved in any of our events or what's been going on. and share our posts and things, and like our posts. That's how you become a part of the Women's Banner Group. So as you can imagine, we're pretty massive now. We've got a lot of people who are really interested in what we're doing. We class all of those people as part of us, anyone who's got an interest in it. So find us on Facebook. Our email's on there. It's womensbannergroup@gmail.com. We'll add you to the mailing list to keep you updated with anything. If people have, causes that they're passionate about, just get in touch with us, and 9 times out of 10 we'll totally get on board with it if we've got the time, or we'll just say, right, what help do you need, what support do you need for you to do what you need to do or want to do. So yeah, we're very, very inclusive. We have no tolerance for bullies, we have no tolerance for hatred. We will come out strongly against any of that, but other than that, we're pretty nice people. You can totally join in with us, it's fine, you're all welcome.
Great, and you've also started a film club, haven't you? So it's going to be sort of every month with special films and a Zoom and things like that. How could people get involved in that? Yeah,
so the way to do that would be to join the mailing list. And what we'll do is we'll set up a Zoom link and send it to you, and the title of the film. Watch the film in your own time. You've got a whole month to watch it, and then we'll just have a chat about it. It was really interesting. The last one we watched was a film called Moxie that was just released last week, and it was a film by Amy Poehler, who's a comedian from America, and I absolutely loved it. It was sweet, and it had a good message. There were some parts of it where you thought, we could have added something else there, but you can't tackle a million issues. Like, they had one clear issue in this film, and it was misogyny and sexism and the treatment of girls. And I thought they did a great job. And then we had the Zoom, and I thought it'd just be like, popcorn, a bit of wine, and we'll all have a girly chat. I'm taking that back as well. There's no wrong with a girly chat. But it got really emotional and really intense, and it became really clear very quickly how these issues are still really prevalent now, still happening to everyone. We had people on the call who told us things they'd never told anybody else until that meeting in their entire lives. So it was really, really deep, really empowering. Good to know that other people go through the same things that you go through. Awful to know that they do. So it just gives us, and also it's, if we're going to continue, I'm not a mind reader or a fortune teller or anything, but I reckon we probably need another lockdown come summer. So let's not be isolated, and let's just get together and have a chat.
Definitely. I think it's a great way for people to get together and talk about issues that matter and how it resonates with them and things in the community. I really do think it's amazing. So should we talk to Lasscast?
Oh yes, please. Yes, please. I'm so excited. Yeah. There's more of Lasscast. So I'm gonna let you manage yourselves. You can see how I was just like totally seamless. We haven't done this a million times before at all. But no, I'm really excited to talk to you. I've been desperate to get you on this show for so long. Obviously Neve's been on a few weeks ago on my Social Ties show, and Charlotte's been on Paul's Origin show. So we've got 2 newbies, and I'm dead excited that you're here. I absolutely love Lasscast. I'm really embarrassed that I've only just listened to the most recent ones, like the October one. Literally just listened to it the other day, and it was brilliant. I love it. I'm walking the dog with my earphones and trying not to go yes, because people will stare. So for those of our viewers who don't know, and I can't believe anybody who watches us wouldn't know who you are, please tell us a bit about yourselves and what it is that you do.
Crikey, where do we start? Well, I don't think that I should take it away with the origin story, because I'm rather a latecomer compared to the other 3. But I think we should start by hearing about the conception conversation between Bethan and Lauren, because it was you guys who dreamt up the notion, right?
Yes, I completely forgot about that actually. Yeah, so me and Lauren, we met after the 2019 election. Let's not talk about it. Hard times. And we were in Newcastle, weren't we? And we met up, and Lauren was like, oh, like, I think it would be great to do a podcast. And I was like, yeah, sounds great. That sounds amazing. And we sat, I think Lauren went and bought a new notepad and pen from a shop. And we went and sat in a cafe and just like put some ideas down and had a bit of a Google and stuff, and then obviously it took a bit of time, and then I think we were just sort of thinking, when could we do this? You know, we live so far away from each other, how do we get like together in person? And then lockdown happened, and I'll pass it over to Lauren.
Yeah, so that I think put the wind up us quite a lot, because, you know, we're quite political lasses, and we were quite disillusioned after the election, and we were like, where are we going to put all this energy? You know, we want to keep going. And also like political meetings and stuff when they're in person are a chance to keep in touch with other activists, and to, you know, keep well informed, and, you know, to speak about these ideas. And like, not all of us live with people who are very political, so, you know, meeting up online and actually making the podcast a thing just seemed like the natural thing to do. And I'm not sure whether we would have. It might have been put on the back burner, you know, had it not been for lockdown. So at least, you know, something good has come out of it. So yeah, it's just started as a way to kind of like educate ourselves and to keep informed and that kind of thing. And for me, like, to build confidence public speaking, like, yeah, and also there don't seem to be enough spaces for like women, especially like northern working class women, on like LeftTube, in podcasts. You know, I listen to a lot of them, and I think it's a great way to keep up to date with what's going on, and to access information on the go and stuff like that. But you rarely hear a voice, like a northern female voice. So, you know, starting to fill that gap.
I actually think there's so much overlap between ourselves and the Women's Banner Group in terms of the reasons why we started. I feel like ever since I got involved in activism in the happier times of 2015, the heady days, I've been told like, maybe you can post a few social media posts, maybe you can like hand out a few leaflets, you know, if you're good, and these like gatekeepers are going to determine like how much you're allowed to contribute and how much your voice is allowed to be heard. But then actually what I found with Lasscast is that by us coming together and like just saying we're going to do this for ourselves, but also for like you know, the people we represent and the community we're from, we just have so much more ability to express ourselves, ability to be creative, and to kind of like create a resource that reflects us and our communities. And it's been so liberating for me, just being able to have Lasscast as an outlet, as somewhere to like share ideas, interview really interesting people. And I think the Women's Banner Group are a really big inspiration to us.
Oh, wow. Well, okay, girls, give up now because we've achieved something. Yes.
It is interesting. Sorry. It is interesting how it is all about, both projects are about female representation in like the arts, and in how art and communications like inform ourselves about ourselves. Like it's a conversation with ourselves, but it's also a conversation with the people who will come after us.
I think it goes back as far as the sorry, do you mind if I think it goes back as far as like the consciousness raising exercises of like the women's liberation movement in the latter part of the 20th century, women coming together and talking frankly about their lived experience, and there is a revolutionary capacity in that when these very experiences have been suppressed for so long. And through art, you're totally right. This is one of the things that it's actually like one of my like research interests, the way in which you can form communal bonds through the production of art, but also most importantly the interpretation of it, because it is those like sentiments, those experiences that despite distance, be it caused by the void of the pandemic, they kind of survive by deferring them into the future, to be interpreted and understood by people with your community, even though you may never meet them. So yeah, super alike and really, really important.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stands out for me for what you do is how open you are. you can tell you're not bound by any rules of either the patriarchy or organized politics, I guess, and you are very open. The last podcast of yours I listened to really struck me at how just open you all were about mental health issues, and that was so refreshing for me. And it did, as much as it, like you said, did feel like you guys were just having a conversation, it does open that up to normalizing that for other people who are listening. And I certainly took from that, oh, okay, so it's okay not to be okay. And I know that is a lovely t-shirt slogan, but you guys seem to really embody that, and I absolutely love that. Can you tell me a bit more about sort of the messages you intend to send? Do you plan them before, or does it all come out sort of organically? And what are the main driving forces that you are trying to sort of deliver between yourself and the listeners? And that's
thanks,
anyone.
Laura. That's a really good question, and I'm really glad it's resonating with you so much. I think, talking about like the messages we want to put out there, everything we do is shaped by the fact that we are a collective of, as we call it, Northern lefty lasses. And, actually, I think this is another overlap with the Women's Banner Group, which is my theme tonight, is that, like, you guys, your mission was all about, let's reject this separate spheres thing of, this very Victorian notion of there's the men's issues and the women's issues, or there's the women's issue and they're completely separate. Like, we want to talk about our experiences as Northern lefty lasses in literally everything we do, because, like, gender pervades everything we do, so does class. And, I think if we can talk about mental health and, first of all, be an outlet for ourselves, for our listeners, for the guests we invite on, to express themselves, then that's achieving its purpose. But also to, really apply our political principles to those things. Like, obviously mental health is a topic that's often explained away in scientific terms or kind of like biological terms, chemical imbalances, all that stuff. If we're going to talk about like real kind of social factors, the politics of everything in everything we do, then that's actually our mission, and I'm really glad it came across in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Like, I'm really glad as well. Like, I definitely owe my recovery to being able to talk about my mental health to my friends, and for having friends who are open to talk about it with me. And I know that not everybody has the luxury, it's not a luxury, but not everybody has the benefits of having friends who can be open about it, or family who are comfortable with them being open about it. So it's nice to know that it has helped, but talking about it kind of helps me in a way. So I do find it.
I think Lauren, your story particularly resonates because it's to be honest, especially through lockdown, I think most people have struggled with some form of mental health issue, because it hasn't been easy, and anybody who says it has clearly had issues in their life before lockdown. But your story, it seems so much more intense, and it does feel like something that would ordinarily, you talk about having been sectioned previously, and it does feel like something that ordinarily people would try and shove under the carpet. Absolutely no reason to do that, and I think you're absolutely right to talk about it. And I think somebody like you, who's really intelligent, really knows what they're talking about, really knows their stuff, lovely lass, proper Northern lass, I think people like you sharing those stories will really benefit other people. And I know you said obviously it benefits yourself as well to talk about, which is fantastic. But then again, that promotes talking about things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Has it been difficult to be so open?
Oh, I find it difficult not to be open, and that's just my personality, to be honest. I do get myself into trouble sometimes, and I've got to be careful. but thinking about this, I had a mate called Jess, and we were only acquaintances when I got sectioned. But she herself suffers from bipolar, and she'd been sectioned before, and she came to visit me in hospital when she'd only met me twice because she had time off, and she spent a last bit of money on a bus fare to come and see me. And just having someone there who had been through the same thing as me helped me feel like I could get better. Do you know what I mean? And I could, live a normal life after it, because I didn't know what was going to happen to me. It was just so scary and overwhelming. So I think it really is important to share, like Jess did with me.
Yeah, lovely. And Niamh, you're sort of the newbie. How did you get involved, and how have you settled in?
I'm not sure if you call it nepotism, but just by being best mates, really. There's nothing that Lauren could say that I haven't already heard and tell that. So it was just really natural for me to come, I think, into the fore and just add to the conversations that we're already having off camera or record if we don't actually film them with a camera. But anyway, off the Zoom call or whatever. And it's funny, we were talking about mental health in relation to the podcast and the content that we put out, but I remember really distinctly being sat in the bath during lockdown. And so I was quite poorly around this time last year with my mental health, and like mine normally hinges on like imposter syndrome, but like the very extremes of it, and like quite deep insecurity. And I'm much better now, but at the time I remember being sat in the bath and listening to this podcast and just thinking I could never formulate such like coherent, eloquent, powerful, intelligent ideas about politics and society. And that was so wrong, like goodness me. And this podcast and what my friends were doing with it was the very antithesis of this notion. But imposter syndrome is such a common experience for working class women in politics and in academia, and it was my experience of that feeling as like a student at university, as a working class student at an elite university, that had caused me to feel that way in the first place. And then Charlotte and I moved in together. And Lauren for ages have been talking about getting me on the podcast. And they really want to make it a collective of like women and non-binary folk from like north of England, from the northeast perhaps more specifically, and likewise, this is one of the projects, including being a member of ACORN, the tenants union, that was really important to me in building myself back up again through, just really honestly and really comfortably exchanging ideas with other people who were really encouraging, and through that, those ideas and my confidence in them were built. And so it's just a really positive project, and it's great to hear that it's having like a positive impact on listeners as well.
Oh, I think it definitely is. And dear me, I've heard of imposter syndrome, but you not being able to formulate coherent political sentences is ridiculous. You are one of the most confident speakers I've ever met. And I know me say it's like, yeah, I know me saying that isn't necessarily going to change the world for you, but dear me, that's crazy. Bethan, I'd like to talk to you about so last summer, the first summer of lockdown, was the first time I experienced Lasscast. So I put you in my ears while I was blistering hot sun, and I was painting me decking in the back garden because I thought that was a sufficient use of my lockdown time. And I was really blown away by particularly your delivery of ideas. Obviously I know Charlotte and I've met Lauren. She came to speak at OCLP and it's fantastic. I feel like there's a lot of academia goes into their particular thinking. It kind of, I don't class myself as an academic as such. And as much as you two are really clever and really brilliant, and I love you and you're fantastic, Bethan, when you spoke, I just felt like you were like a version of me, and I just got you and I understood you, and I was like, oh wow, you were like, I felt like you were really real, and you didn't have to put on any airs and graces or any shows, and I absolutely love that about, I mean, the whole show really, but you particularly, your delivery it felt like something that was really authentic? Is it something that you sort of keep in mind when you're doing these podcasts, not to try and market yourself as something else?
Absolutely. I mean, thank you so much for saying that. That is actually a mission accomplished. Like, I can bye. See you as this. I'm leaving. No, I think like that one of my biggest things is, why do we have to keep logging things away, right? Why can't we just have everything open? Why can't we just say how we feel about things, and like really say how we feel, and not just like have to pretend to say it properly? Otherwise we might like risk someone being annoyed at work. Like, I think if we're gonna change things, if we're gonna have these conversations, they need to be as honest as possible, and we need to put them out in the world in the way that we'd want to receive them as well. And I think, you know, it's, yeah, I don't know, I think we do as Lasscast want listeners to listen and resonate with what we say and actually hear what we say as well. And I think one way to be heard is to make it as easy as possible. And I think I don't know, I think it's I went to university in the south, and coming back from university and sort of like reclaiming that myself in a way of like, I used to have a way stronger accent, and I lost it because I was trying to be someone I wasn't. Like, reclaiming that with this podcast has been such a big step in like feeling confident with what I have to say, and understanding that like people listening are going to understand what I'm saying because I really mean it. I think that's what we all try to accomplish.
Well, you're all doing a fantastic job of it, and I think, do you know what, it's really what's missing in political education. We've been trying to sort of, I guess, share the message of socialism, and so we've done a lot of research, and we've been involved in a lot of political education things, and I do feel like a lot of them are pitched really high, and I find that the theory behind it all fascinating, it is, but then I think, right, how am I going to get this message to someone who's just on a shift in the factory and come home and just want a cup of tea? They're not going to want to read essays and stuff, but I feel like people could just put their earphones in and listen to you guys talk and really resonate with it. So I think you're doing a fantastic job, and you need to keep it up, or else, basically. Charlotte, can I ask, do you have any more podcasts planned? Are you going to be doing them on a monthly basis? I know you had quite a long hiatus for a while and you've just recently come back. Is it going to be, have you got sort of a more structured plan? How can people listen to what you do, and when can they hear more? And I am talking about myself because I want more, please.
Yes, I'm really glad. Yeah, so I mean, if you don't already, get yourself over to Twitter and follow us on there, or we're on Spotify, we're on Podbean, where we're gonna, we basically came to the decision quite recently, probably around the time Niamh joined, actually, Niamh being a force for good as ever, and we decided to get very serious, or maybe not too serious, but a lot more serious about doing regular uploads. We started off kind of like interviewing a lot of our friends, just because, that's what happens, isn't it? Like, we've all got loads of mates who have really interesting things to talk about. So we interviewed Lauren's cousin Rosie on the impact of motherhood during lockdown, and that experience, really important experience to get out there, and again demonstrating how we want to talk about the politics of gender in everything, and the politics of class in everything, because it's there all over the place. So we're doing interviews. We've got a few coming out, including with somebody who's just been in India during the farmers' strike. That one I am so excited to bring out. We are doing, we're doing a variety of things. We do kind of like topical ones every now and again. Like our first ever podcast, I believe, was about, we're getting together, loads of brainstorming ideas about COVID and what that meant for our society and everything. So we got that episode out, but yeah, we continue to do like fairly topical and news related ones. And then we also do ones that are just on particular interests of ours, like me and Neve did a podcast quite recently, which we just recorded on our settee after weeks of binge watching The Crown and trying to think about, what is the importance of the monarchy and that kind of angle on politics and society. So yeah, we have all these ideas, but the thing is, we're going to have to interview Women's Banner Group at some point. We really encourage people, if they know about a story or they have somebody really important that they know that they think this message needs to be heard, they just drop us a line, because we're not about airs and graces. You don't have to have published several articles or held some certain positions to end up on our podcast. We're about real people's stories and the politics that motivates our daily lives. And so yeah, please drop us a line if you want to get involved in any way as a speaker, a contributor, or anything like that.
Oh, lovely. And how can they contact you then? Is it an email address, or do we find you on Twitter?
Yeah, so I'll read out our email address, which you always read out at the end of the podcast, so I know exactly the tone to say it in. You can contact us at lasscast@protonmail.com, and we are on Twitter as well, which we are. I think we're at Lasscast. Yeah, we are. So please get in touch at lasscast@protonmail.com.
I absolutely love that. Oh, studio voice, fabulous. Right, okay, so that there, our introductions, that's about us, how you can get involved. Just lovely stuff. Thank you so much. We wanted to move now just to a bit of a chat, I guess, pinching from Lasscast, just having a bit of a chat about things that have been going on. You'll have no doubt seen in the news this week about the disappearance of Sarah Everard. It's really hit a lot of people very hard. The reaction to it especially has hit people, where it hurts. I know Lasscast have got, they've asked if they can read out a statement tonight, and yeah, absolutely, go right ahead.
Thank you so much, Laura. So yeah, we wanted to say a few words because we were discussing amongst ourselves today just the amount of hurt that we feel following Sarah Everard's disappearance. It could have been any one of us. We constantly shrink ourselves and monitor ourselves so as to not cause violence to be acted upon us. And entitlement to our bodies is normalised and expected, but our bodies, they're not our own, no matter how many t-shirts are sold with the Girl Boss slogan or how many of us speak about the Me Too movement. Then there's the intersection of this with other factors, such as race, queerness, and class, to name but three. And we want to add that there is absolutely no room for transphobia in this conversation. To quote Kimberlé Crenshaw, who was a law professor who coined the term intersectionality, all inequality is not created equal, and we must recognise the ways in which various forms of inequality often work together and exacerbate each other.
The women's liberation movement in the 1970s spoke about how 2 women are murdered by their nearly always male partners every single week. In 2021, this number is now 4 women a week, and this is because of lockdowns and being stuck with violent partners. This is systemic, meaning that the solutions also have to be systemic and should be in favour of women and non-binary folks who often find themselves at the sharp end. Austerity is violence against women and non-binary people, defunding women's refuges, community centres and groups, making it near impossible to access mental health services, female unemployment and low pay, and the setup of universal credit and other welfare that makes it that little bit harder to leave an abusive partner are all ways that this violence is baked into the system.
And to this, we say fuck the police and fuck the blatant abuse of power and fuck the perpetuation of systems that leave us trapped. It has to end. And we aren't talking about awareness raising or training. The narrative that we need more good police to change the culture and overwrite the bad police is bullshit. They're trained to be violent oppressors, And we have more than enough evidence to show that putting money into the police isn't the answer. The answer is the opposite. Take that money away from violence and put it towards transforming and healing our communities. It's been a painful few days, and we're encouraged by the media present this as an issue for men to take on. However, this is the bare minimum, and it's frustrating that it's taken even this long to move that conversation that far. And we call for you to be better. And we want to say rest in peace, Sarah Everard, and rest in peace, Nicole Smolin and Biba Henry, and rest in peace all the women and non-binary people who never made the headlines. We are angry, and we will fight for this to end. Thanks.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. That was really powerful, and I don't think anybody here will disagree with a single word of it. It's interesting you mentioned there about men being told to take on this campaign. I'll be interested to see what the White Ribbon Project come out with. I know they do a lot of work on men supporting women. Yeah, and you're absolutely right that the whole thing, it has been a really difficult few days. It's been difficult, I'm sure, for Sarah's family and friends. It's been difficult for any woman who's ever had to walk home with her keys in her hand, or looking behind her shoulder, or pretending to use a phone. And honestly, I haven't met one woman yet in my entire life who hasn't had to do one of those things. So this absolutely is a systemic problem. Also, I think for me, the amount of men I've seen who say, well, not all men, or, well, it happens to men too. Of course it does. We're not saying that's okay. No one's taking anything away from you. It's terrible. But the fact of the matter is, it does disproportionately affect women. Massively, like not even in competition. And so I've been really heartened to see most of my friends who are male basically saying the same thing. It's not about protecting your gender and going, oh, well, no, men are fine. It's about going, shit, this is happening to women. We need to support them. We need to make this not a real thing anymore. So I don't want to bleat on about it, because I just don't want to make it about me. But you're absolutely right. I love that statement. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to sort of clip that statement and put that out on Socialist Think Tank. The Women's Banner Group have been really seriously affected by this as well, especially today. And we're planning a campaign on the back of the Reclaim the Streets campaign. Lynn, I don't know if you would like to sort of tell people what we're doing.
Yeah, so we were speaking today with Emma Rowell, who's the women's officer at Bishop Auckland constituency, where me and Samantha are, and we're doing sort of a joint campaign with them to sort of try and raise awareness of this is just not okay. And Emma came up with a really good idea. I'm not sure, am I allowed to talk about the idea, Laura, or does that need to be secret? Has it gone public yet?
Yes, it's gone public. I posted a message of please join in earlier on, just before this, before the show started.
Okay, so we're going to be contacting everyone on our mailing list as well. So basically, we are. It's going to be kind of like an art project, I suppose, which is, it takes us back to our roots again. Insofar as it's all about photography, and it's going to be looking at. We're asking women for donations of dresses, and we're asking women to put a message, either written in Sharpie directly on the dress, or on a little label that we can attach to the dress, and it's going to be a message of how they may have experienced something along the lines of, being followed, or being commented on because of wearing a short dress, or something like that. And we're going to sort of dot these dresses all around. I'm not going to say the location actually, but there will be a location where these dresses will be dotted around and photographed. So is it on our Facebook page, Laura?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so hop onto our Facebook page if you want to get involved in that project. It's going to happen next weekend.
Yeah. And before that,
Facebook chat.
Oh, thank you. Well, before that, what we'd like to do as well is get photos of women. just holding up a sign of solidarity or any message they want to say in terms of this sexism and this fear that women feel. Just because a week's a long time in a news cycle, right? We don't know what's going to be happening next week. So if we can get something out this week, just as a show of solidarity, and also the more women we can get involved, the more we can highlight how big of a deal this is. It's massive. It is literally every single woman has had an experience of some sort. And we need to just stop the crap narrative of, oh, well, it doesn't happen to everyone, and oh, well, it's not all men. Right, okay. This is the factual information we've got, and we need to do something about it. And just huge solidarity and love out to all of Sarah Everard's friends and family. I can't imagine what they're going through. And like you say, all the hundreds of women who died last year, I think it was 118 women were killed by men who they knew last year. So yeah, solidarity. Anyway, should we have another topic of discussion?
I have one. So obviously the Meghan interview went out, and there's a big, everyone's either for or against. I haven't heard of a lot of in the middle for and against arguments, and I would say that I only listened to half of it, and I turned it off because I couldn't get on board with either. I couldn't get on board with where they were coming from. I couldn't understand. And I don't think there's been a lot of interviews like that that's happened. So I'm going to watch it later on. Once all the hype's died down, I'm not listening to the hype. I'm going to wait, and I'm going to watch it later when it's been forgotten about and make my own mind up. But I just wondered if anyone had watched it and what they thought about it.
Nobody.
Nobody watched it.
Has anybody actually watched it though?
Charlotte and I watched it on Monday. Okay. Oh, that's a Barefaced Lie. We watched it on Tuesday.
Nice.
We didn't watch it as it was coming out. But so Charlotte and I have got an interest in the British monarchy as an imperialist institution. So we thought, let's watch this. We've just finished watching The Crown season 4. Let's tune into The Crown season 5. And much the same themes of misogynoir in particular. And it is an interesting one because it's very hard for me to see the members of the royal family, any of them, as people. Because if our analysis of The Crown season 4 has taught us anything, it's that they're freaks, and in lots of different ways, and their extraordinary power, which is built upon like colonial wealth, you know, of the British Empire. So like the hyper exploitation of racialized populations in the colonies is what makes them so freakish. You know, and on top of that, this notion of this like legacy of white supremacy that stretches back like is it 1,000 years? I don't know how old Alexander the Great is. Anyway, and here you can see the way that has bled into relations, like intimate personal relations between members of the royal family themselves, in the case of, you know, Harry and Meghan and their like relationships with members of their family. But I do hope that you know, aside from commenting on the very obvious and vile racism and misogyny in the coverage of Meghan's life, you know, the intimate details of her life since she began her courtship, as she said very delicately in the interview on Monday, her courtship with Prince Harry. Like even aside from that, like I do hope that people will watch this and that they will empathize, and that this will give people a way into thinking critically about the royal family as a racist, imperialist, classist institution, and see how, you know, the very top of a hierarchy that upholds all of these really horrible forms of discrimination within wider society. It's a very convoluted answer, but nevertheless.
Yeah, there were two things that I picked out from the interview, quite similar to what Neve's been talking about. First of all, it's a woman talking about her experience of racism. So I think we need to take that seriously, no matter what we think about the individuals concerned. And it's really hard to, like, as a socialist, to really kind of like know what to think about this or to make your mind up, because instinctively it's like, you know, we know the royal family shouldn't exist. We do find it hard to empathize with somebody so rich and powerful, but you know, those very serious experiences of racism that we need to take seriously. But two things about the interview that are just kind of like encapsulated the whole issue for me is the bits where Harry and then also Meghan and Oprah were talking about Meghan as a great ambassador to the people of the Commonwealth because she's a person of colour. And I think the words representative were used, maybe even aspirational, although don't quote me on that one. But it's just this idea that people could look at Meghan, you know, people of colour in former colonies that have been, you know, exploited and oppressed, and both human life and material resources just extracted out of their, you know, their countries, could look at Meghan and think, wow, the British royal family has a person of colour in it. That could be me one day too. And obviously that's the whole myth that the royal family rests upon, is that, you know, well, first of all, these are like special magical people who have this royal blood in them, but also, you know, maybe one day you could be like that if you married into it, if you were that special person. And so, yeah, that was a bit freakish to me. And then also the fact that the word race or racism wasn't used until it was mentioned by Harry, the white man in this situation, which, you know, I think Niamh said to me at one point, like, you know, when's the word race going to come into this? Like, it all just feels a bit kind of like tiptoe around the subject, which, you know, it's characteristic in these discussions where they don't call a spade. Like, it isn't, the actual issue isn't talked about. It's kind of like dealt with in very kind of like personal ways. And yeah, most families don't get to air their beef on television with millions and millions of people watching. So it's not like any other issue where we kind of know which ways to pick a side on. It's just a pretty horrible experience of racism, but also a really horrible power structure that shouldn't exist.
I don't know. I don't want to talk over it.
Go for it.
I think it's potentially a really good way to introduce people to the idea of intersectionality if they've never really been able to, you know, we always talk about intersectionality sort of at the bottom, about the most exploited, the most disadvantaged people, but we can talk about how they are very privileged and have lots of power and means that we will never have, but at the same time it's not all right to be racist about them. I didn't watch the thing. I'm not hugely interested either way. I've got lots of real life things to do rather than living vicariously through somebody else's soap opera. But also what has been interesting to me has been looking at how people react to it and seeing the toxic masculinity and the transphobia in the memes. If you've seen the meme where she's the man and he's the woman and he's wearing a skirt, and that's funny because a man wearing a skirt is funny. It's not funny. Grow up, right? It's not wrong for a woman to have an opinion, and it's absolutely not wrong for your husband to respect you enough to back you up against his family, right? Especially when his family are the most powerful family in Britain. And it comes back to something that I often talk about, which is the whole thing, you know, socialism starts at home, equality starts at home, and women everywhere. And I know that me and Lynn and Laura are totally kind of on the same page about this. We don't stand for any of that nonsense in our house. And I just hope that going for, you know, a joke, you know, one of the most socialist things a man can do is do the washing up, because people talk to me and they say, oh, Samantha, how do you do all of the things? You have 3 children. I have been told I can't possibly do things because, the kids might miss me. They have another parent who is capable of looking after them. And we need to continue pushing against among our friends to talk about this. And talk about the fact that we do actually deserve equality, not just out there, but also in here. And I think that's really important. But yeah, the memes have been horrific. It just makes me so angry, because you then see the underlying things that your friends think. Yeah, that's distasteful, isn't it? You're like, oh, maybe thank you very much after all.
We all know that Alex babysits your children all the time.
I know. Poor Alex.
Can't deal with it.
Poor Alex. He's always making the tea. Well, I mean, he's got a stomach. Like, he wants to eat. Why shouldn't he make the tea?
I mean, I think for me, those memes, as much as they do absolutely point to clear transphobia, they're also just loaded with sexism, misogyny, misandry. So she wears a trouser, that must mean he wears a skirt. No, we're a team. We help each other. Why do I have to be the one to do the dishes and hoover up, and he's the one who goes out to work? And it feels to me, now that we seem to be going down this path, I'm going to ride with it, that these sort of beliefs and ideologies, I guess, are things that are just coming back. Like when I was really young, I remember the old Irving dolls, ball and chain jokes, and that sort of started to go away. And now we're just back in the 80s again, like slap bang in the 80s. Thatcherism, neoliberalism, proper sexism. But oh God, you've got to laugh about it though. And it's just like, no, let's stop going backwards. Can we please move forwards? But then how do we do that if we're going to keep going on this roller coaster of, are we not being sexist? Oh yes we are. Are we not being? Oh yes we are. And people still don't get that women are still being oppressed. Women are still victims of all of these oppressive ideas. Like, I'm glad you didn't ask me to come on the Lasscast show about having children in lockdown, because literally it would have lasted 5 hours. You wouldn't have shut me up about it. It's bloody hard. It really is. But again, it does disproportionately fall on women, but that's expected. Samantha sent us a story from the Northern Echo today, and it was a man, I think somewhere in Newcastle, who was out drunk with his son in a pram, who only had pyjamas on. It was -4 degrees, and he had attacked 3 police officers. I know what you're thinking, right? Wonderful gentleman. The first comment that was on that entire thing was, "Where's the mother?" It's just like, I'm just gonna scream. Why? It's just horrendous. So yeah, we need to do more about that. I feel myself going on a rant. You guys need to chip in.
When I had my second son, right, I was going back to work full time, and friends and family members like, do you not want to go part-time? No, I don't. Well, why? Do you not want to spend time with the children? Do you not think that you owe it to them? Like, I can do both. Like, I've explained that away so many times. Why do we still have to explain ourselves if we want to do something? People still say, when they say, "Where's the beds?" I'm like, with the dad? Like, am I the only one in charge? It's odd, isn't it? And I find myself getting less and less polite about it. I'll rant now. Don't let me.
Oh, definitely. Like, I let rip to one of my boyfriend's brother's mates last night, because I think there's like I feel like it's an anti-feminist backlash. So, now things are starting to get really hard for people, like economically and socially. Like, women are a perfect scapegoat, aren't they? Because they have been through history. So, like, I know a lot of these lads have got into, the ideas of Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you've heard him, but it's the idea that, like, women's sexual freedom mean that men are finding it harder to get partners. and therefore their mental health is suffering, and therefore they're being violent. And all of these problems in society are because, you know, women don't have to marry the first person that they hold hands with at 17 years old. Do you know what I mean? So like, these are really, really toxic ideas. And, you know, I'll challenge them till the cows come home. But if lads aren't challenging their own mates in their groups, then we're fighting a losing battle. And it's becoming really clear to me that there's a lot of group chats out there where, you know, people will say really misogynistic things and they'll be like, oh, shut up, it's boring. Or, you know, they'll kick them out the group chat and let them back in, but they'll never really challenge them properly or stop being friends with them because of it. You know, there's no real consequences from men because it's a women's issue. Oh, I really like him. He's a good mate. I just disagree with him on that point. You know, misogyny is not being rude. Like, misogyny is violence. And, you know, your silence is violence if you're allowing that to happen in your groups, men.
God, yeah, I think that is so right. If not recently, God, I lost all of last year. So the year before, I was reading Bell Hooks, and she talks a lot about patriarchy. And one of the things that really struck me, and I've used this before in sessions I've done on smashing the patriarchy, is that actually the patriarchy is a construct that doesn't just attack women, it attacks men, because men, she says, have to sort of cut off a part of themselves and throw that away to be the man that they're supposed to be in society. So, you know, men don't cry, men are the strong breadwinners. These are all patriarchal ideas that attack men as well as women. Yes, women are the victims of it ordinarily because of those constructs. But when we say smash the patriarchy, we're not trying to be, you know, these are people say feminists are sort of just angry women who are just pissed off at the world. No, if we get rid of that, it benefits all of us. And I think getting people to realise that and understand the language they're using is wrong on so many levels in different ways, and educate people on that. But again, the only way we can do that is by having frank conversations. And I think Lasscast, you're probably the only people I've listened to who do it on a level where people can engage with it and listen to it. And yeah, sometimes have a laugh with you as well, because you're really funny people. You know, you could be comedians as well. And I think for that reason, you guys really need to build your platform and keep going, because it's really helpful. And I think it'd be something that anybody could listen to. You don't have to have had like 10 degrees on the history of colonialism and blibbity blobs. You know, it's just real people talking about real Issues, and I love that about you guys. So, yeah. I'll never stop promoting you.
You'll have to come on, you four. Definitely. But like, we do it in like a really accessible way. So like, if people are nervous, because a lot of women are nervous because you don't get much chance to speak in meetings usually, do you? So basically we record it, but we do it in a way that everyone has control over it. So if you want to cut something out, add something in, if you change your mind about something, if you just want to reword the sentence, or, you know, you can take as much time as you want if you come on Lasscast. So don't let that be a barrier.
Yeah, we'll take that as an open invite. We'll be on, definitely. Okay, so I'm really sad that we're going to have to finish. I'm really enjoying this, and I feel like we could just have a lovely chat all night. Does anybody have any sort of final comments that they'd like to share, either about their groups or about life in general, before we wrap up?
Just on that thing about, sorry, Lauren was like, just on that thing about women and speaking. I was asked by a woman how she could get better at speaking as a local politician, and my advice was, it's just practice. And you're right that we don't get the platforms to practice on. We're not allowed into those spaces. Men take up the whole room with their pointless comments that have already been said by 6 people before them, and they've got no urgency over it. And then a woman, after having her hand up through the whole meeting, will finally get her chance to speak because she's held her hand up, she's followed the rules, and about 6 men have jumped in before the chair has actually had a chance to go and call her in. And she'll go, "This is my moment. I hope I haven't upset anyone." We just do not have the opportunity to practice. So absolutely, that's my advice to everybody out there. Take opportunities to speak. Ask Laura and Paul about coming on Socialist Think Tank and having an interview. Ask Lasscast about going on there and having an interview. Take up, I used to be on Aycliffe Radio, and I think we had about 3 listeners, and I went there probably 2 or 3 times a month, just to give you that practice of, I've got thoughts, I need them to come out of my mouth in a way that is persuasive and that makes sense. How do I make that happen? And make no mistake, people like Boris Johnson were trained how to do that when they were 5. And it's important that we're able to speak for ourselves, because they are not going to give us the tools to do that. We need to find the tools to do that ourselves.
Very good. I think everybody agrees with you there. Okay, unless anybody has some burning desire to shout something at me. No? Okay. Right. Well, I'm so sad that this is coming to an end. It's absolutely flown, and it's been so lovely to have everybody on. All my sisters, thank you so much for coming on the Social Ties tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure. We will 100% talk to you again. You are not getting out of it. Whether that, in fact, I think individually you all need to come on the Origins show, so that's happening. We will sort that out. Again, Social Think Tank are available. We have our own website. We're available on YouTube, on Twitter, on Twitch, on Facebook. Please find us, like, share, and subscribe. Also, become a member. We have a members area now. You get special behind the scenes footage. You get to help us set up scenes for our chats. And also, you can donate as well if you feel so inclined, because we want to keep going. We want to keep delivering our message, and we are having a blast, and we are hopefully making a difference. So if you like us, find us, become a member. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all again soon.